be based
Yeah,
on what I
yeah.
read, but
Okay. I think we're live, is that right?
Yes.
So, excellent question. The question is, what is brain integration? Brain integration is called a specialized kinesiology. So that means it uses some kinesiology techniques in order to get a specific result. And the specific result that we want is for the brain to work as fast as it possibly can. Right? Come on over. So kinesiology, usually when people think about kinesiology, they think about muscle testing. Has everybody here been muscle tested at all? A few people don't know what it is. Muscle testing is a very simple system in order to get some information about how a body is working or how a brain is working. Muscle testing is very, very simple. It requires you just to hold up your arm, the practitioner presses gently on it, and then will release. When the brain shows stress, believe it or not, that muscle will not be able to hold. It's just a slight change. And that on and off switch is the toggle that allows a practitioner to find out exactly how your brain is working at all times. So I can find out if you have a memory problem. I can find out if you have a neuroendocrine problem. I can find out if you have a focus problem, all through this muscle test. The other part of it is what we call neuropressure. So instead of acupuncture, where we put a needle in one of the meridian points, we use our 2 fingers to touch those points. So some people call it acupressure. We call it neuropressure because those points are mapped to the inside of the brain. So touching those points and using a muscle monitor is how I can find out if something is working or not. If there's a wire inside the brain that's not transmitting energy, I use just my 2 hands to hold your head, and your brain, believe it or not, rewires itself. So I go through a protocol of 46 different items, checking to see if this person's brain is transmitting energy in this area. If it's not, I hold the head and I build the wire. If it is, I don't have to touch it and I move on. So protocol is so brain integration is a protocol to bring everybody up to kind of the same level. Did that answer your question?
yeah.
It's a huge topic,
Yeah,
brain
generally,
integration.
yeah,
And
right.
so it has, and there's a million ways to talk about it, but those are kind of the basics to start.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Corey is also a brain integration practitioner. Corey works here at Whole Body.
Hi.
She was also in Liz's class. Corey, tell us a little bit about what you like to work on.
So, I just left, I apologize for my delay, what's called a MAP training, and that's for future foster parents. So I've been a foster parent in the state of Massachusetts for 11 years, and the kids that I like to work on the most have been basically traumatized from their initial move and separation from their parents. So I like to work mostly because it's something that I've been familiar with for a long time, and it's something I'm really passionate about making a difference in. So many of us have experienced so many losses and disappointments and betrayals, and in addition to your brain having some electrical imbalances, anytime it's traumatized through significant loss or betrayal or trauma, as in when kids are removed from their family, a lot of times there's a block that occurs. It's just the body and the brain's attempt to protect itself, right? But it makes it difficult sometimes to be the first one with your hand up in class, or to have access to memory, learning, concentration. And through my work with the children that I have in my care, sometimes I'm able to take them from way below where they should be developmentally in class to vibrant, healthy, exuberant toddlers and young people that are not as encumbered and burdened with the losses. I don't erase the memory, just the block that's attached to the memory. So that's probably the majority of people that I've worked with, although fortunately we've been trained to work with any and all things that are brain related, luckily for us and hopefully for you.
Yes, the truth is that each practitioner has their own specialty, really. So Corey is excellent when it comes to family issues and adopted children, that type of trauma. Liz has her own tools as well. Liz is also a Reiki master, has several other tools. And so each person's clientele really is almost tailored to them. I do mostly learning difficulties also PTSD, and also brain tumors. Brain tumors or craniotomy if you've had surgery on the brain. I've had a lot of clients with that, or an aneurysm, something like that. I get a lot of people with concussions. So concussions are pretty rough. So I gotta put the brain back together. But it doesn't take too long, believe it or not. Even after one session, you feel a major shift. So I'm gonna pass out here what's called the BIT behavioral checklist.
Need some pens?
Sure. Actually, some clipboards would be great. Thank you very much. So this
One clipboard for now. Oh, there's some more coming. There's also magazines close by. Here's another one.
So the BIT behavioral checklist.
Here's another one. Do you need a pen as well?
Yeah.
You want?
Hi everybody online. We're just going to change this a bit.
Oh, there you go. You're resourceful anyway.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I'm the lucky.
You like resourceful.
So the BIT behavioral checklist.
Pen?
There's some more.
Thank you, got one. Reinforced.
So this is what you would fill out if you came in for brain integration. This basically is a checklist of all the different symptoms that you may be having in life. So, you know, everybody knows somebody who's accident prone. Anxiety is the buzzword of the year. So many people walk in with anxiety. Can you fix that? Right? People who are clumsy, people who daydream. These are people in school who have ADHD or ADD. They're daydreamers. Difficulty budgeting time, that's an ADD thing. So you just kind of look over that. When you come in for brain integration, you put one check next to anything that is important to you, and you put two checks next to something you just have a really, really tough time with. And so that's the way we fill this out. A brain integration practitioner can deal with all of these issues and more. So this is just a good place to start. If you're online right now, you can find this sheet on my website, nancylodi.com, under Forms. It's called the BIT Behavioral Checklist. What we find is that really the reason why these symptoms happen is because of a lack of access in the brain. So does everybody here know a little bit about the brain? A little bit? You know it's up there? It's not down here? It controls some things. It doesn't always do what I want it to do. Sometimes I really wish it would cooperate, and it won't. But sometimes it surprises me, and it's awesome. So I'm not sure why my Prezi's not working, but we're just going to move on here. This right here shows the two hemispheres of the brain. You have the logic hemisphere, and you have the Gestalt hemisphere. Gestalt is a German word that means the big picture. So one side of your brain does all the tiny details. What time do I have to be there? What color do I need to wear at this gig? What is the phone number of the doctor's office? Where's the address? How many pills do I need to take in this protocol? Those are all the tiny details. The other side of the brain thinks about the big picture. What do I want to be when I grow up? Consequences, like if I make this step, what will happen next? The big picture. So a lot of times you get people who either have access to one or the other. So if they have mostly access to Gestalt, this is where you see people who are diagnosed with ADD. If they're hyperactive, that's ADHD. So these people see the big picture. They often can be artists. They can see the whole big thing right there. But when you ask them the tiny details about how they're going to get to that, they have limited access to that portion. The other side of the spectrum, of course, is people who have access mostly to the tiny details. But I'm going to tell you right now, in our world, those people are usually successful in business and usually do not come in my office. These people, though, usually have a tough time accessing emotion, larger picture things. They may be lacking gusto for life. They're kind of like, I don't really know why I'm here doing this. I keep going to work every day and I'm good at that part. I can put the money in the bank, but I'm missing out on a different portion of life.
Social niceties.
Yeah, the social parts. So you have these two major structures, and then you have another thing called the corpus callosum. I'm just looking this up right now because we have some technical difficulties with my presentation. The corpus callosum is the bridge in between those two hemispheres. Let's see if I can find a good picture here. This is what it looks like. This is a cross section of the brain, right down the middle. So your eyeballs would be here. The cerebellum is here. This piece in the middle connects everything on the right with everything on the left. So that means even to walk, you need a portion of this thing to work. The corpus callosum has two sections. One moves all your muscles. That's called the neuromuscular level. One does cortical thinking, which is everything else. Doing your taxes is here. Making sure you schedule your kids' doctor's appointments is here. Making sure you get to the dry cleaner, get up here to get your clothing that you had dry cleaned is here. Really, honestly, we need both sides and that bridge to work really well. For most people, they have limited access to one or more of these three major parts. So that's the first place that a brain integration practitioner starts, is to clean those things out. Any questions? No? So the brain has these major tracts of wires. They go right to left across this commissure. Those are called commissural fibers. They go from top to bottom. Those are called projection fibers. And they go front to back. Those are called association fibers. And a lot of times, these main tracts of wires are switched by polarity. So that means that the information doesn't actually go and get processed. It really comes into a loop. So we have these major patterns for why brains don't work. The first one, right-left switching, is where you have a processing issue. This is kids who cannot get their homework done. They cry and they scream. You cannot offer them enough ice cream to do their homework because they just will not do it. That's called right-left switching. We have top-bottom switching, where your thoughts go round and round in your head. You probably know somebody like this, where they talk themselves through a problem, and then when you think they're at the end and the phone call might be over, they're at the top again. Right? You know exactly what I mean, right? That was definitely me. And then you have front-back switching, where the brain is predominantly looking at the past instead of being in the present moment. It can occasionally mean that the person is looking too far into the future.
But mostly they're stuck.
Most people are just stuck one way or the other. So a combination of these three makes it so you can't get through anything, and that's what I had. I had all three switched. So that I was okay at school until I got a candida overgrowth, which I didn't know what that was, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But after that, I couldn't process anything. My parents got divorced. I had no idea how to deal with my emotions. My grades plummeted like crazy. My thoughts went round and round. I couldn't make a decision to save my life. I would make one decision and then change it the very next second. And then that flip-flop took years to understand. And I was constantly referring to some things that happened in my life, like my parents' divorce, other emotional trauma that had happened to me. So I had this really big processing issue. So when I came in for brain integration, it was almost like I finally entered my own home, in a sense. You know, it was like, oh, now it does these things? Oh, now I can remember that phone number? Oh, now this processing is very easy? Oh, that thing that took me hours just took me a few minutes? It's really astonishing, and that's usually what people feel when they have brain integration. Anybody have that result? Did you have that?
I've had people, even the first couple, somehow I'm just more motivated. Somehow I'm able to do like the same task I set out to do, and I'm not distracted. And for some of us, it's kind of a big hurdle. So those sheets you have in front of you, prior to brain integration, I was like, check and 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 check. It was kind of the same thing. Dr. Ned Hallowell is one of the foremost experts in ADHD in this area out of Harvard. And I was with an organization where he came as a guest speaker, and he handed up the same type of form. And it was to establish whether, as adults, you had ADHD. 36, and I got 32 out of 36. And he said, and how really have you managed? But as an adult, or even as a high school kid, you just learn to structure your environment. So prior to brain integration, for a lot of people, it's just more exhausting. It's just so hard to be you. Like, nobody was at my door going, oh, I'll be you, you know, right? Because it's a tough assignment for a lot of us.
Yeah.
You know, we're just working so much harder than, surprise, we didn't have to.
Yeah. Cool. So we did get this presentation working. It's just on my math book, so I hope you all can see.
Would you tilt the screen down just a bit? Yeah, awesome.
I usually sit there, so it's nothing to me for you to sit over here, and then you'll actually be able to see more. Either way, I'm perfectly fine.
So with our makeshift situation here.
That's okay. Oh, my pleasure.
So we were talking about the two different sides of the brain, the right brain and the left brain. The artsy people on the right, the analytical people on the left. We talked about the corpus callosum. This is a way better picture. It looks like this tongue thing, and it does connect everything on the right to everything on the left. This is how you walk, by the way. You know, your left side of your brain controls the right side of your body. The right side controls the left. If the corpus callosum wasn't talking, you wouldn't be able to walk. That's crazy. And then we talked a little bit about the progressive checklist, the different things that a brain integration practitioner can do. So now we're going to get into the exact bits of it. This woman here is named Susan McCrossan. She's the one who compiled this work, and that's why it's called Crossonology. Susan taught me to do the work. She taught all of us, and she's an amazing person for having put this thing together. She learned about it from another kinesiologist named Richard Utt. That was in Arizona. So what they found is that these acupuncture points are mapped to the different areas of the brain. They made this mapping happen. So when I touch these acupressure points, I can access something that's happening here. And that's how I can make the changes in the brain. So when a brain integration practitioner goes through your brain, they're going to look at all those main tracks going right to left, top to bottom, front to back, and make sure that they're working correctly. Make sure that the energy is correct so that you can process the information in your life. Then they go through the limbic system. This little diagram here, a little small. You can see this black part right there. That's called the reptilian brain. That's the part that breathes and has sex. Truly. Then you have this one that's got a little stripe across it. This is the limbic system. The limbic, yeah, everybody heard of the limbic system? You have? Okay, so the limbic system controls all the autonomic things that happens to you. That means going to the bathroom. It means hair standing up on end. This is where your heart rate is modulated. This is where arterial pressure is modulated. However, also in this area is the amygdala. Amygdala, everybody heard of that? Mm-hmm. The amygdala is what puts an emotional tag on everything that happens to you. Has anybody seen that movie, Inside Out? Inside Out. Have you seen it? So the marbles come down the thing. They put the memory in the marble, and it turns a particular color. That's the amygdala putting an emotional tag on something, and that's for your survival. That means don't touch that pan again because I have an emotional amygdala memory that it will burn me. Right? We want to keep that one. But what happens if you have a trigger because you grew up in an oppressive household? Now you try to be in love with your partner and you have a trigger that prevents you from being close. That's where we don't want it to happen anymore. So the brain integration practitioner goes into the amygdala, erases the emotional tag, and you can't get triggered any longer. That's crazy. It's amazing for anybody who's ever been triggered. Everybody here has been triggered, I know, right? You see that one type of person who is abusive, or somebody who cuts you off, or somebody who's emotionally unavailable, and you remember, oh, it's just the way that my parents were, just the way my mom was, right? And you're like, why would that bother me? It was years and years and years ago. But the truth is the subconscious runs everything.
The amygdala said, gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. It's been getting you ever since.
Yeah, it's been getting you ever since.
Nancy, could you just go back 1 second? Because
yeah.
I saw you like saying, so if you've ever had the benefit of acupuncture, and the acupuncturist hit meridian points that had nothing to do with your initial area, and yet you thought, no, honestly, that does feel better. I don't know why, but it does, because the same meridian points that were used in acupuncture were also used for points in the brain. So for me, I just found it astounding, right, and really almost incredulous. But that's the only thing that I can point to say, so it's similar to this. Right? Because I think sometimes when we put it out there, like, oh yeah, and all these different things are different points in your brain, you go, yeah, right, okay.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah,
so there are very few comparisons that you can make that seem credible. So I just wanted to interject that.
And everyone else says, is it like Reiki? I'm like, no, it's
Right.
very specific
Right.
to very specific energy of the brain. It is talking directly to, we can go as deep as the brain stem and, anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's not like Reiki. I'm changing the wiring of the brain. Literally changing it. I was talking to somebody earlier today about talk therapy. And I personally believe we need all the therapies. Really, we do. We have, our population needs really everything. However, if the brain is not wired correctly to let go of that issue, when you go to talk therapy, unfortunately, you are strengthening those sets of synapses, and that will actually injure you more. This is why people go to therapy for 10 years and come out actually, in some cases, worse than when they went in. It's really unfortunate. But if I quizzed you every day or every week for an hour on 2 + 2, you would know it was 4. And if I quiz you every week on your issues, you will know them. 100% you'll know them. That's how you strengthen a wire in the brain. So unfortunately, when the brain is not wired correctly, it's almost impossible to get past these things, which is why brain integration seems so fantastical, because it really is the only thing I know of that can go into the subconscious areas, rewire it immediately. You don't even have to consciously think about it, and then your behavior changes. That's the biggest thing. I don't get clientele because I say it works. I get clientele because they see children change, and then they immediately walk in the door. And that's what was done for me as well. So the brain integration practitioner is going to do all those main tracks, going to do the limbic system, going to make sure the information coming through the eyes and the ears is correct. This is important for when you're in school. Then the brain integration practitioner does a thing called repatterning. So this is where I take all the clean parts I made on one side and the clean parts I made on the other side and make them work as one piece. So we use like an advanced marching thing to make sure that this thing works great. After that, I take it out for a test drive. I want to know, how well does this brain work? If I give you some math, can you do it? If I give you some reading, can you remember what you read? If I give you some numbers, can you say them to me forwards and backwards? If I give you a code, can you figure it out? And believe it or not, 100% of my clients can do these things. I don't have any clients that cannot do the test drive. Reading comprehension is a big deal, right? When I was a kid, my parents really didn't care if I had reading comprehension. They said, just make it through school. But these days, we have actually begun to identify, why are they not making it through school? Why is this person who has enthusiasm getting a C in history? That's my personal story. And the reason is I couldn't read. I could read okay, but I was not comprehending what I read. Also, I got tired when I read. It gave me headaches. It ended up I would read in bed covering one eye. I didn't know that that was weird until I became a brain integration practitioner. When your eyes go on a page, it's called tracking. You track the words. Most people's eyes do not move fluidly enough to actually track on a page that they're reading. That means they're dropping words. That means they're dropping comprehension. In addition, most people either don't have the focus to stay with a book long enough, or they have a dyslexic problem where things are moving. Either way, brain integration can get to those areas and change it. How many people here have books that they just can't make it through? Right, exactly. I want to read all of those books, and I read the first page of the first 3. Right, that's how my life was.
Or you have to power through and read the same darn paragraph again and again and again. It's just, there's only so much time in my life. I just don't want to fight every moment, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The worst for me is picking up a book and then getting halfway through and it's like, oh, and then picking up another one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Some of us are guilty of that.
Right. So what I found personally with brain integration in my own life is that I almost immediately after brain integration, I was able to remember what I read. That was weird for me. Somebody asked me, oh, where did you read that? And I was like, oh, I read it in this magazine by this person. You know, I could even spell that person's name. It was very strange. When your brain starts to work, it feels weird, because as adults we feel like, oh, I'm never going to have, didn't have it as a kid, didn't do it. So a lot of times, whatever you're good at as a kid becomes what you do in life. Most people think that you grow out of learning difficulties, but I think the truth is you're not tested on everything like you are when you're a kid. Like none of us as adults are tested on history, math, English every day. That doesn't happen. So for me, I was good at math and music, so I became a professional musician. That was my first career. Then I got brain integration, and now I study neuroscience. And I remember all those little things, It's really fantastic. So in brain integration, our goal is 90% reading comprehension. That means if you read something once, you will get an A on it. Most people who he's like,
Oh, I know.
really?
You didn't hear about
Because I had to read the address 10 times to even get
Sean
here.
and I are outside like, where is it?
I know that seems mean, but we're friends. It's our banter. So, it's really fantastic when your brain starts to work. And this reading comprehension is really unique because, you know, we want our kids to learn, and we're kind of like grilling them all the time, and here come the SATs, and practice this and practice that. When you start doing brain games, your brain can only go so fast. The reason is the wire is very long. In brain integration, I make that wire short, and then suddenly you can go a lot longer, a lot quicker, learn a lot more things. Another thing in brain integration, you can learn to memorize everything. It's not something that you practice. Your brain suddenly makes a perfect picture. So a good example of this is I have kids who come in dyslexic. They are behind in their reading. I do all of brain integration on them. They go back to school and they become the top of their reading class in multiple languages. This happens all the time with every child. So most people come into me with like reading comprehension in the teens, about 17%, roughly. Between there, it's not usually higher than 20, but occasionally it is. That means you have to read something roughly 6 times to get an A. And that's how school was for us, right? Imagine if you only had to read it once. Or if you wanted to read it twice, then you really know it. I could give a lecture on it. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, mostly.
Yeah, or other things.
And then you can go to the beach, which is the real point of brain integration.
And I was one of the Gestalt girls, so the reading comprehension wasn't the highest on my list, but the math, major phobia. Like even addition, I was like, oh no. I worked at the Flower Exchange, had to leave that job because the money was always right, but my boss would go, and how did you manage to even get here? Because none of these slips were right, none of them. So I didn't want to do my own taxes. I didn't want to balance my own checkbook. So it was just like normal adult types of behaviors that I just was prohibited. I cannot. Now I'm like, I do my own taxes. Yes, I do. I like rows of numbers. I could never have said that in my entire life.
Wow.
Like every math thing was a huge obstacle for me. So just for that freedom alone, I was like, okay, yeah, I can do math, yeah. Because it was a sore spot for my self-esteem that I couldn't have.
Yeah, and self-esteem is exactly what it is. Because we want to have high self-esteem, but how can you when you have all these problems, right? So once your brain starts working correctly, somehow the esteem magically rises. Is that what happened with your child? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we've been to CVS 3 times.
Yep.
3 hours.
I worked on this child for 3 hours total.
And he went from being, you know, he's always wanted to do well, but he's always kind of struggled to do well. And now he's lighter, he's present, he seems more confident, and he's just able to do more, which I can't even explain it, but he got a 91 on his chemistry test.
So suddenly he got a 91 in his chemistry test. Now, I guarantee I did not tutor the kid in chemistry.
Right.
I straightened out the wires of his brain.
And
Not even all of them.
He doesn't seem stressed as much, like he would be stressed, and now he's kind of like, he's doing it.
Yeah, and an interesting thing here is that kids actually love to come to brain integration. They know it helps them. I never have to drag a kid into my room. Some parents told me the only way I can get my kid to stop playing video games is if they have an appointment with you. I was like, wow, that's pretty strong, you know? So kids know that it changes them. They're ready for it. They want me to change it. Pretty cool. So I'm going to test it, make sure it does reading, make sure it does math, make sure it does puzzles, all sorts of things. Mostly our testing comes from a thing called the WISC, which is the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for children. They also give that to adults. But it is a really good test to see how the brain is going to work. Normally, your WISC score does not change over the course of your lifetime. After brain integration, it does change. Susan McCrossin tells a story that she can quadruple the score of a WISC test. And it's not supposed to change, but we do change it. Did you want to say something about that?
Oh, just that we don't normally have clients taking the before and after WISC that we see, so it's not some evidence that we see personally, but yeah, if
They administer it for kids in neuropsych testing.
Yeah, so I do have a few kids who have already had the WISC.
My son
They come in
has
for
it.
BIT. They're usually tested every 2 years, and then you can see the change on the WISC test there. Cool.
Do you have quantitative data from that, or is that?
Do I get to keep the data from the WISC?
Yeah. Did you get any results like before and after from WISC tests?
Yes. Yes. The parents will usually photocopy it and bring it in, and then you can see.
Put on the fridge.
Put it on the fridge. Yeah. Cool. So, any questions so far? No? So brain integration is different from everything that I've ever heard of, and most things. There are no medications required for brain integration at all. There are no exercises to do at home. And there are no changes to your learning style. So if you're already an auditory learner, you remain an auditory learner. If you're a visual learner, you remain that. But you get access to the other parts, which is cool. It is also not an ongoing therapy. This is a mostly permanent therapy. Some people say permanent, and some people don't like that word. But the truth is, after I've worked on someone, I rarely have to see them again. I recommend they come every year because car accidents, something crazy happens. But by and large, they do not come back. They just gain this and they walk off and have a new life. So I don't know how most people feel about the word permanent, but those are the real results. You can actually see some of those results on the Whole Body website. If you look under the brain integration tab, there's some anonymous results there, so you can see what typically happens for people. Okay.
And I think I like to tell my clients that when you have a major life change, whether it's divorce, house fire, change of address, you know, death of a parent, those are some of the things that can set you back, right? And again, you're not going to do 13 hours, an hour, and you're good, because we know where it was, what it was, and how to fix it.
In addition to a concussion, usually if there's a concussion after brain integration, I can reset almost everything in an hour. So actually it's not that much. Okay. Any questions about that? So let's just talk briefly about nutrition. Nutrition plays an important role in all of life. I like to say your car can't run on sugar, and neither can your body. I made that up. So the main thing that we talk about as brain integration practitioners is a thing called Candida. Candida albicans is the full name. Anybody here not know about Candida? No. Candida is a fungus. It grows naturally in your intestine. It's supposed to be there. If you have an antibiotic and a sugary diet or any mixture of that, it can overgrow and push out the other gut flora. It's invasive in that way. When it grows strong, it becomes an adult mycelial candida. That means that it's got a shell on the outside of it and it's got a point on one end. If you look this up on the internet, you're immediately grossed out. This point is important for the candida because it allows it to burrow into the intestine wall and remain there and cause lots of havoc in your body. The first two symptoms of candida are anxiety and depression. So it's the first thing I address in brain integration. I can take the energy out of that candida so it doesn't continue to overgrow. After that, the symptoms are so long that I stopped making a list.
Right.
I wanted to hand out a list to everybody. Here are the symptoms of candida. It turned out to be 21 pages. I decided not to print it. There's also a change because there are different symptoms in kids as adults. And there are emotional symptoms as well as physical symptoms and mental symptoms. So some of them are rashes, eczema. Those are some of the physical symptoms. A yeast infection is here. Bloating and gas, that's also here. Some of the mental symptoms are fogginess, inability to process, allergies happen there. Emotional symptoms, anxiety, depression, inability to process any emotion, and being stuck in the past emotionally. That's really what we see there. I can cut through a lot of bases. So candida is like this thing that we really need to have control of. Some people estimate that 90% of the population of the United States has a candida overgrowth. We have tons of antibiotics, and it'd be hard pressed to find a food in any grocery store that doesn't have sugar in it. So,
in addition to the mold and whatnot that's in all of our wheat products and our oat products, and so like there's so much stuff that's left in storage before it even hits the processing plant, months before it hits the grocery store, a year and a half before it hits your shelf.
So the thing with Candida, if you look on the internet and start to research Candida, people will say, I can never get rid of it. I was on the Candida diet for 20 years and it still came back. In brain integration, we have a little bit of a secret weapon here because I can take the energy out of that Candida so it cannot overgrow. If you had brain integration and I did that balance for you and you took a probiotic, avoided those foods, most likely you can get rid of that overgrowth. That's how it was done for me. That's how I do it for all of my clients. So in this way, you don't have to be on that Candida diet forever. You just need to focus on it for a short time. Usually it's 2 to 3 weeks in my office. Most people have tried to do it for 10 years or greater. So it's a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of time. And it works really well for kids, you know, to be able to kick that.
Do you have any clients that had some gluten issues that are able to be addressed with
brain integration?
Mm-hmm.
So I can usually get rid of an allergy or a sensitivity to almost anything. I got rid of all my seasonal allergies using brain integration. I used to be like attached to the Kleenex box all the time. But we can get rid of allergies by doing the same thing. With a food sensitivity, I balance the body to the food. However, gluten in this country is wheat is genetically modified, so I cannot make it okay for the body. I can take away most of the symptoms, but not all of them, unfortunately. So I personally avoid wheat, but it's up to the person how they want to do it. Any questions about this weird part? Nutrition, Candida?
No, I mean, it seems when we talk about the integrated approach to wellness, there are all these contributing factors. And
Yes.
it may be one part of the body that one thing is happening, but that's appearing in another part of the body that's causing us a certain symptom
That
to
is
appear.
exactly it. So when it gets to the skin, when you have eczema or you have a yeast infection, it's called systemic. It's in every part. And the thing about Candida, it can cross the blood-brain barrier, right? So you have that barrier up there that doesn't allow viruses and bacteria in. Well, Candida can go up there. It's got a point on it. Also, that point doesn't just burrow into the intestine. It can burrow through the intestine wall and open up a hole. So food that's not digested goes right into the bloodstream, and that phenomenon is called leaky gut. Leaky gut. Yeah. So, go ahead.
And also, there's all these studies that say that kids who had ear infections, repeated ear infections as babies, will have ADD.
Yeah.
And they don't relate that to, well, if you have repeated ear infections as a kid, you repeatedly were exposed to antibiotics. So
Right.
you wiped out all of the natural bacteria in the gut that produce, that have so much to do with your mood regulation and all these things. And yeah, it's just a cycle that isn't really talked about because there's not much that can be changed right now.
We should say here, though, that if you are planning to take an antibiotic or if you have to take one, we recommend a probiotic in between the doses of antibiotic. So if it's a 12-hour pill, you take your probiotic at the 6-hour mark. Sometimes you have to do that. We need Western medicine. If you get your arm chopped off, don't come to me because I won't put it back on. Go to a doctor. But if you want your brain rewired, come in here. Cool. So I think I said everything here. Candida overgrowth is caused by antibiotics, a poor diet, stress, and poor digestion. The symptoms include foggy brain, lack of concentration, mood swings, anxiety, depression, headaches, itchy skin, gas or poor digestion, asthma, allergies, autoimmune disease, cravings for sugars, breads, and pasta. Autism is linked here, ADD, ADHD, and metabolic syndrome. Okay? But if you do have Candida, you have to do your part and avoid the foods. I can't do everything, and that's something that the person has to do. Okay?
I was surprised because I am one of those people that would try to eat sugar solely if it was possible and get away with it. So when I was tested for Candida, I knew that I was going to come out positive for Candida. And yet I was fearful that I was going to have to be on a Candida diet for like a year. Know this, know that, know it. And truthfully, it was 6 weeks. I thought, I can do almost anything for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Right? And since then, when I'm on probiotics as well, and if I know like I've had a weekend or something like that, I can get a reboot, right?
Yeah.
And so as much as so many people come in that want like a thorough change, but sometimes they're dragging their feet around the dietary And so we meet them where they are. We're trying to really kind of work with what you got and where you're going. And hopefully you'll see enough benefits that you'll decide, okay, maybe it's not worth the exchange.
Do you work with a nutritionist when you're doing this, or is it just something that you?
That's a good question. I'm
Like specifically like related
To-
instead of or your position on taking probiotics versus healthy foods, fermented foods, yogurts, that kind of thing. How that
works?
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough to work here, so I have a nutritionist right down the hall.
Okay.
Most practitioners do not.
Mhm.
But I think we all think about it the same way. If you have an overgrowth of candida and you eat a fermented food, it actually feeds the candida, unfortunately, because we want to use that as a prebiotic actually, because that feeds the good flora that's there. I actually think that nutrition and a probiotic are needed, both. I do not know of any information that you can overdose on a probiotic, so I usually err on the side of more. So you take if you take 2 a day, you take them separately, and usually on an empty stomach. Does that answer your question?
What about, can you talk a little bit about the differences in the probiotics and how those are processed in yogurt versus like the standard process? Because I know there's a difference.
Yes, well, yogurt, first of all, is a dairy product. Most people cannot tolerate dairy. Also, there's not enough of a probiotic really in there to do any effectual change. If it is a sweetened yogurt,
Forget it.
so that does not work. Also, there are gummy probiotics. Don't take them. They have sugar in them.
I really thought I was doing my part. I really like those gummies too.
So Standard Process has an amazing line of products. They're made on an organic farm.
I'm on them now.
Right.
I started taking them.
Standard Process.
Yeah.
But they
I
are.
switched my vitamins.
Oh,
And that was
you-
Susie. I loved her.
Yeah. We do have an awesome nutritionist here, Susie Falco. Shout out to Susie Falco.
She's awesome.
She's really amazing. She's not only a nutritionist, but she can create a meal like. We'll have to have a discussion about that at a different time because I'm drooling about it. So Standard Process has a bunch of different things that act as probiotics and prebiotics, but I do believe you can get good probiotics anywhere. The strongest one I've heard of is called VSL3. It is not available in this office, but you can get it at CVS of all places. As long as you check the website, it's a medical probiotic food, VSL3. But as long as you have a few strains, like different types, and a few colony forming units, which is what they mean on the bottom when they say CFU, that stands for colony forming unit. That means that the little probiotic goes in your belly and makes a whole city, and that's what we want. So the more colony forming units, the less you have to take. I think the most I saw was 12 strands and 50 billion colony forming units. But you can get any number in there. If it's a really, really bad problem, you try something like a probiotic enema. Those are listed in Dr. Perlmutter's books, but that's for an extreme case. Any other questions about that? So probiotics are really helpful. Sometimes people say, I can't come to your office, I can't afford your service. And I say, try a probiotic. It will do you a world of good. The other thing I want to talk about in terms of gut health and intestinal health is using a stool when you go to the bathroom. We have to talk about this. I use a stool in the bathroom. It changed my life. It's very nice when your stool actually comes out. It's really good. So sometimes we call it the stool or the poop stoop. There is a company selling them called Squatty Potty. I don't usually buy an extra product. I just use my kitchen stool, but it's a cool thing. The cooler thing is the commercial about Squatty Potty because it tells you exactly why it works. So you have the colon like this. There is a ligament that prevents that colon from letting the poop out. When you're constipated and it won't come out, the toxins your body wants to get rid of get reabsorbed into your body. It becomes a toxic situation. That is the start of sepsis. So when you have your knees up and you're trying to get that 30-degree angle, just trying to get your knees up, that ligament releases and the colon will let the poop out. This is really important. So the second Squatty Potty commercial gives a really big argument there about why the health of the common modern person is in danger, and it is actually the shape of the toilet. So some free medicine, put your foot up on a stool, have a bowel movement once a day.
That's why she does these presentations. She's much better at that potty talk.
Well, it's important. And I used to not want to talk about Candida because I didn't want to ask people if they were eating sugar. But the truth is, brain integration won't work very well if you are.
But you can tell.
I can tell. Yeah, so I muscle test that information.
I tell people it's like cleaning up the park and making it all look good, but there's always going to be fog over it. That's like, we can
that's great.
we can get everything straightened out, but you're not going to see the results because you're going to have this like fogginess in your head. That acetaldehyde that's produced by the candida, it's like a gas that gets, it's part of the metabolic process of that organism, gets released and it gets stuck up in the brain, causing a fogginess.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's why acetaldehyde, builds up in the liver, builds up in the brain. It's the byproduct of the candida that's really toxic. So.
So that is really important to make sure that you got that probiotic going and the stool going. So sometimes I tell people if they can't come for brain integration, try just that, because that can make a huge difference. I really only ever had one client who didn't change, and I worked really hard and I didn't understand why that was, and it turned out it was constipation. So after that, I've been really, really adamant about making sure that my clients have a bowel open all the time, especially if they're detoxing candida, because you want that stuff out. After that, the brain integration works fantastically well. Suddenly it's like the lights are on, my vision somehow is better, I have better acuity, I can hold on to things, I start to type really quickly and never make a mistake. This is my personal story. I got rid of all of my allergies. What a different life it is to live without allergies. That's huge for me. I sleep like a baby now. I had insomnia under candida, but I didn't know I had candida at the time. I was really young. So all these benefits can happen with brain integration. So what are some specific questions that you have about people you're concerned about?
I think for me, this was very informative so far, where my company is called Drums and Wellness. It's a drum-based educational startup focusing on personal development.
Oh, wow.
And so my focus is indeed engaging the corpus callosum and how can we engage the whole brain so that we're not just focusing on IQ development and the left hemisphere and logical analytical thinking. And so borrowing some of Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences theory, I've kind of used that as a basis of my method. So this has been really great, and I definitely want to learn more about what it takes to become a practitioner and how I can use this in my practice.
Yeah. It is not hard to learn. Most people who study it become a practitioner within 1 year. The reason why it's easy is because to be a student, you have to have it done on your brain. And that makes learning very easy. So when I went into my first class for brain integration, you don't have to have it done on your brain for the first class. And so we had like the goody two-shoes who were in the front, and we had the people who were really sequestered because they were strange on the one side, and then the people who were pretty smart but didn't want to look like a goody two-shoes in the back, and that's where I sat. And it was just like a normal classroom that I had been used to. When I came for my second class, everybody had to have their brain integrated for that class, and that was a different experience. Everybody was attentive, nobody was left behind, and if anybody had one question, it was almost as if everybody had the same question, and that was usually because they didn't hear the teacher. And so it was remarkable to see this group of people just completely learning. What a level playing field in a classroom. It was very strange. But it usually takes about a year. There are 3 modules to become a practitioner, and then you can go right on out and help people. It's not hard to do. I personally think it's very easy to learn, and I would like to see people take it to their own communities and help those communities. That's really where my heart is at. We have classes in Colorado, and we have classes in Boulder, Colorado, and here in Boston. So that information is available on crossonology.com. It's also available on my website, which is nancylodi.com. And it's a really fantastic thing. I think this is a tool that more and more people hopefully will start to use, because there are no exercises here, no medications, just changing the functioning of the brain, helping out the people who are closest to us. you know, first. I think Mother Teresa said that, and I really take that to heart. She said, help one person at a time and start with the person closest to you. So I think if we all did that, a little bit of brain integration out there, that'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, everything you said was pretty much aligned with where I'm coming from in using rhythm in order to create some new brain pathways in.
That is amazing.
You know, and so the only thing that I don't have is your perspective in realigning pathways using touch.
That's right. Using kinesiology, that is exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yes?
Why don't you demonstrate a balance? I mean, I'd be willing to, if you don't want someone else on TV, but just to show how the muscle testing and the points and the balance works. You guys interested in seeing that?
Sure.
Go ahead and just face everybody else. So we use muscle testing here. I have to make sure, do you have any thing with a battery in your pocket, like a watch
No.
or cell phone? Okay. So I'm going to hold her arm up in a basic muscle test, and I'm going to press here very lightly.
And I'm normally laying on the table relaxing, so it's not.
Yeah, this all happens on a massage table. Okay. So why don't you think about something that, well, before you do that, let's just say, here's Patrick. He's going to do a cameo on Facebook. Give
Hello,
a wave.
Patrick.
Hello.
Patrick is an acupuncturist here at Whole Body. He's awesome. Nice to see you, Patrick.
Nice to meet you.
Good evening.
Good evening, Patrick.
I told him earlier he was going to have to do a cameo because he's leaving so late. So here's the muscle monitor, and it's strong. It just holds strong. I'm not pressing very hard. So can you, without telling us what it is, please,
I want to tell you.
but don't.
Oh.
We don't want to know yet. Think about something that's bothering you, something you know gives you stress, and let me know when you were thinking about it.
Okay.
Got it?
Mm-hmm.
And when I press this, it's going to be like this. I'm going to catch that information in my own body. I've just done that. Relax here.
Mhm.
Now I've caught that information in my proprioceptive loop. This is a little bit more in depth, but essentially I have hijacked my own circuitry. Now I'm going to hold the head here using the frontal occipital hold. Has anybody seen this hold before outside of brain integration? You have? Yeah. So it's actually for calming the nervous system, but what I'm asking it to do is calm the nervous system about this thing that she's stressed out about. And now we just wait for a little while. Usually a balance takes between 1 to 3 minutes. It's not very long. Occasionally it takes just a little bit longer. And while this is happening, essentially her brain is deciding to give up that stress. I'm asking it to do that, and it will do that for itself. When I feel the pulse, I take my hands away, holding my legs like this. I'm going to re-muscle test, and you'll see that the arm is strong. Now I'm going to drop that energy and walk away. Now I've closed my proprioceptive loop. I'm not holding anything any longer. So I'm going to hold this arm up again to recheck what I've done. Now think about the thing that was upsetting you. Let me know when you got it. So now when I press the arm, it's nice and strong, and it shows that there is no stress on this particular indicator. I could go a lot deeper than this. I could ask a specific emotion. I could go into the brainstem and find if the diencephalon is affecting something here. I can go into the amygdala and see if this is a rage response. I can go into the limbic system and find out if it's making her tired or if it's making her hair stand up on end. Lots of different things that a brain integration practitioner can do here. I could also check to see if it's affecting a chakra, right? And making an energy problem here. What was the issue?
I'm filming. I have to speak on film tomorrow, and I'm scared about it, so I was just kind of worried about doing that.
How do you feel now about thinking about it?
So thinking about it,
Or doing it,
Okay.
trying?
it just seems like, I don't know, like my body gets less like electrified when I thought about it the second time. Like the first time I was like feeling some kind of energy around it, and then the second time I couldn't get that like same, almost like electrical feeling, you know. So
Right.
I feel a little bit more.
Desensitized?
Yeah, I feel good. I mean, I know normally, you know, when I have something, I'll do my own balances because I'm a practitioner, so I can do it. But I hadn't.
So walk us through out loud what you have to do tomorrow.
Okay, so
We're gonna watch
well, I
this.
have to go home tonight, and I have to go through my script and re-edit it and make sure that
Editing, she doesn't want to do editing, right?
make sure that everything that I have to say fits into 1 minute of information, and it's hard to explain brain integration in 1 minute, so I'm really kind of worried about that. But
So she did not show stress then?
I have to figure out what I'm going to wear on camera.
We get to the truth now.
I just said I want to talk about it, so I have to figure out if I'm going to wear makeup or do my hair, and then I have to get there on time in Porter Square by 11:30 tomorrow morning.
But the show stress song, so there's
And then I have to stand in front of a screen, and they're going to tell me if I'm talking well or not, and it's just a lot.
Okay, so I caught all of these issues, right? And now I'm going to erase them. Can you step forward just a little bit?
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
So, but normally, didn't you go through other parts of chicken?
So sometimes I would go through different parts of the brain, but sometimes they're not needed. In this particular case, she knows what the problem is, really. Sometimes I have to dig a little bit more, but for this particular thing, it's not applicable.
But if you did go through other things, she'd like touch lightly on different parts of my meridians, and she'd be loading up different information using modes in her hands and touching my body very lightly to add information, to go into specific parts of the brain where it's thrown off. So,
Okay, stand here. Think about deciding what you gotta wear tomorrow. Now I'm gonna press, and the arm is strong. Think about finishing your script tonight. Goodness gracious. All right, so now it's strong. And think about standing in front of that screen. So there's still a stress there, right? So a brain integration practitioner is gonna go through and make sure that they fixed it. They should anyway. That's what I teach them to do anyway. Good. Any other questions?
I can finish this up later.
No.
Fixing it now.
So any other
No,
questions?
what I thought was interesting, because I've worked with Nancy, was even though I would say, like, if say it was me saying I was worried about, like, doing a presentation or something, she would jump out and say, oh, this, your mother seems to be bothering you, and that is where I was said to Monica, I'm like, she must be like a magician. Like, how does she know? I have issues with my mother, but I don't have issues with my mother. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you know that?
Yeah, well, that's a good one.
How do you
How do you do that, Nancy?
yeah, and like that there's alcoholism in my family, like all of that stuff. Like, how do you know that?
Well, okay, so there's certain things that happen for certain people, right? We all have inherited our gut flora from our parents. If you have candida and I test you for candida, I can usually tell if you got it from a parent, a grandparent, or if it's an acute case that you got just in this time.
I didn't have the candida.
That's just one place.
Yeah.
So for instance with you, I think when we talked about your mom, we were looking at your eyes.
Oh,
So when a person looks up, they're accessing visual memory. When they look down, they're accessing emotional memory. So if you ask them, like, what's on your shopping list, they're likely to look up. If you ask them, how do you feel about that thing that just happened, they're likely to look down. In addition, the left side of the body is the mother's side, and the right side is the father's side. So I think in your particular case, if you don't mind my giving this information, when she looked down and to the left, she showed stress in that arm. And then I knew there was an emotional issue on the mother's side. And she confirmed that that was the case. So I don't read minds.
No, but it was just
But I read muscles.
magical.
And the more and more you do it as a practitioner, you just get to know. You're just like, oh, tell me about that, tell me about that. A lot of times it's in what they say, right? Right? I am working with a client tonight and she says, I'm so slow, my dad always said that. Pause lock. Tell me more about your dad who said this to you. Right? Because I want to get down there and erase all that stuff. And I just try to be as thorough a practitioner as I can because I know that makes you a better person. You walk out that door and you go, that was awesome.
And similar to what Liz was saying, that while you're working with a client, you're asking those other questions and holding them. At what age did this happen? What was the relationship with? What was the most significant relationship that is associated with this balance, with this emotion, right? So you go through the list of all the emotions that are connected. You find the one that's most compelling. You hold that, right? So I had never experienced kinesiology really until I started with BIT, and I was astounded. I'm like, wow, that even works. Like, how does that even work?
And we work with young kids, so the emotional depth that we might get
Right.
with, you know, you or an adult who's open to exploring emotional depth is a lot more than if we're working with a kid. We would not, you know, ask them
Oh, right.
so much.
Right.
And there's some clients who just want the brain integration and don't want to go in and like we can work with people where they're at, but a lot of times people really like knowing where their imbalances are from.
Yep.
Some people are just like, get me efficient and out of here, and
Yeah.
that's fine too.
But just like when Liz showed us she had a stress but didn't tell us what it was about, the work still works. She never had to tell me what that was, and she'll still have a change. She'll still have a change. We talked about a lot of things tonight. Are there any extra questions before we?
I did have one. I remembered from a couple of Lumosity, right?
Yes, Lumosity.
So what do they say? Brain
training.
But is that
Similar.
but different?
You're
Similar
asking,
but
is it,
different?
is
Yeah,
it similar?
yeah.
No, it's different in every way because Lumosity. Has anybody here played Lumosity? It's a game online. I think it's awesome, by the way.
Okay.
Lumosity is brain training. So this is like gym for your brain. You go and you play the games online. It's Lumosity. Some people mispronounce it as luminosity, but it's just Lumosity. And so you play these games. There are 5 sections that they're taking a look at. One is attention, one is memory, one is speed. So you just have these 5 ones that are the most basic for your mind. So anyway, you play these games, and as you play them, you get better-ish, or you get really better, depending, right? It's just like going to school for your brain. But there comes a point where you're never going to quite get past that thing because your brain is as quick as it can get. It's like you went to the gym, and that's as much as your brain can do. So what I like to do is rewire the brain and then do the Lumosity, which is really cool. Because then, not only is the brain faster, it can get the highest score possible. So for instance, on Lumosity, I am in the 99th percentile of my age. That means that I'm faster than almost everybody. And that is from brain integration. So say you come in and attention span is your lowest Lumosity score. We might play that game in the room together, and then you'll see that score jump to your highest. And I really love using that method. I don't really, in that sense, I don't really work on the thing that you're really awesome at. I work on the thing that you're not so awesome at, and in that sense, bring everything way up. So Lumosity is a training game. It's just like somebody sent you home and said, do this every single day.
Yeah.
Brain integration is different. I'm going to make those wires straight, and then you don't need the game. But if you wanted to do it, it would be awesome. What were you going to say?
Well, it's like using the wire that's there to, and you're getting faster, so you're using those memory wires that you already have to get them stronger. But what we're doing is creating a new pathway that's shorter and more direct. So instead of training an old wire that has old patterns in it, we've already reset the wire so that it can get from this part of the brain to that in a more efficient way. And then from that point, building that muscle is effective. But we're not training the brain. We're not making that old wire. We're creating a new wire that's shorter and more energy efficient.
Yeah, and the other thing about that is that when that wire is really long, it's so much energy to run that one wire. This is why kids come home from school hungry, because all day long they've been trying to push that really long wire. It requires so much glucose. It's unbelievable how much glucose. So when I make that wire straight and efficient, you don't need that much energy to do it.
They're still going to come home. Great.
They're still hungry. Children are still hungry.
They eat at 9:30 at night.
Yeah.
So there are some other, like major treatments for the brain that are actually games. So Brain Gym is one of those things. There's another one called Brain Balance. And I believe in those systems, you have to keep doing those exercises daily.
And it's just keeping your mind sharp.
Yes, exactly. But the thing is, it's stressful. It was already stressful. So to do the game is not going to be less stressful. So mostly what you see is kids that don't want to do it. They get forced into doing it. And then after you're not doing the exercises anymore, you taper off and you're actually not that good at it anymore. You find the same thing in testing. You cram for the test. You get a B on the test. The next day, if I ask you any of those questions, forget it. It's gone. Completely gone. So with brain integration, actually, you hold on to that information. You don't cram, ever. Your brain just remembers it. I know, it's weird. It's hard. And the first time somebody told me about brain integration, I thought they had been brainwashed. I was like, there's no way this could be real. Absolutely no way. And then she took away my cat allergy. It took 5 minutes. I was never allergic to cats again. And then I was like, ooh, there's something here. And then she did my whole brain, and then it just, my brain ability went through the roof. It's really phenomenal to have a brain. I didn't grow up with this brain. I have this brain as an adult. It's really unique. So, any other questions? No? More. I know she's got more.
I have 1,000 questions. But just briefly, so just talking about, you're talking about rewiring the brain, about neural connections. Can you talk a little bit briefly, you could probably talk for hours, but about how this is different than something like an exposure therapy for somebody who has anxiety or fears?
Yeah.
Because exposure therapy, it's my understanding that it kind of is similar in that it's reworking those connections so that, it's bypassing that area that you're
that is blocked.
Yeah,
That's a great question. So I'm just going to repeat the question for online. The question is, how is this different from exposure therapy? So,
or similar therapies.
Or similar therapies to exposure.
Right.
So exposure therapy is like this. I don't want to get in that elevator. You cannot make me get in that elevator. But my mom's in the hospital. I really want to use that elevator, so help me out. So the therapist will start to talk about elevators and start to talk to the person. Why are you afraid of elevators? Is it because you feel claustrophobic? And this can, as you can imagine, go on and on and on. The next thing they do is show a picture of an elevator. That's the exposure part. What they want you to do is consciously realize there's nothing wrong with getting in the elevator.
So it's also called gradual desensitization. I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what they want you to do is consciously rewire your brain over the trauma. That's actually what that is.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to the picture, and so suddenly you realize, hey, that's just an elevator. It's no problem. And so you have less stress looking at the picture of the elevator. The next thing they do is they take you to an elevator, or actually the step in between is imagine getting in an elevator. And so the stress happens there, and they talk about all the reasons why that's an issue. Brain integration is vastly different from that. What I'm going to do is ask you, just say, how do you feel about elevators? In that moment, your arm will show the stress is there. Then I'm going to go to the deepest part of the brain that I can get to and erase that stress. The next thing I'm going to say is think about elevators, and that stress is going to be removed. If it's not, I work a little harder until it is, but usually it's not more than 5 balances. Next thing you know, you see an elevator and you know you're not having a reaction. That's the first time it feels weird. Mm-hmm. It feels weird. But then after that, gradually, your coping mechanism goes away and you get in the elevator. This is a true story of several of my clients.
Right.
So you can consciously rewire your brain. It takes a long time and a major amount of effort. So brain integration is the opposite of that. So we're using a small time, small effort, big result.
So
Which
I'll
is
give
not
you
to say that we don't need all the therapies,
Right.
because we do.
I'll give you a very specific example and an illustration. I had a 15-year-old boy that came, had PTSD, and one of his major anxiety spots was getting on any type of bus or major transportation, and there was a whole list of things of what was attached and what he was expecting to happen. 2 sessions, he joined the Ultimate Frisbee team, got on a bus, went, and so I said, I have no idea. All I care about is that he's playing Ultimate Frisbee, and he got on the bus. And so consequently, all the other fears and phobias that he had that were attached to other things, and it wasn't like we were months in therapy. He came, 5 visits, that was done. So I think you just need to see it in action, because we could talk about it, and it just doesn't feel, you don't have the same frame of reference until you've seen the tremendous behavioral change.
If I could share my son,
Yeah, please.
when we first day we came to see you, you did the thing with the eyes, and you said I think you're having trouble sleeping, or are you having trouble sleeping? And he's like, yeah, and he's always had trouble sleeping, but we never mentioned it to you, and she could tell by the eye movement, and you did the rewiring, and he's been sleeping fine, and he's always had an issue since he was a kid with sleeping. I just didn't know what to do about it.
So there you go.
So it worked. I don't know how it works. I don't know why it works, but it works.
So I've been seeing this child for 3 weeks. For 3 hours. I've seen that child only for 3 hours. And already this thing has changed. So most of the stories of brain integration are anecdotal.
Right.
However, we do have some scientific information on the Crossnology website. You can read the information there. But there are some really good anecdotal things about this. So I worked on a kid in Spain. He didn't want to have the work at all. In fact, he said, I don't believe in this, so it's not going to work. But his fear was sharks. He didn't want to swim in the ocean because he was afraid of sharks. So I asked him some things. Think about swimming with sharks. Da-da-da-da-da. I did some other brain integration in between because we had a quite long session. I think we had 2 hours. Never saw the kid again. About 2 months later, I get this picture of him from his aunt swimming with dolphins, feeding them. He still says it doesn't work. He still says it doesn't work. He's like, no, that didn't work at all. And there he is in the water feeding a dolphin. That is incredible. Another one of my clients came in here. I was just talking to him on the phone. He's really a fantastic kid. And he, not so much forced, but, you know, like pressured to come in the room. And he's an adult. He's 18, I think. And I was talking to him on the phone the other day, and he said, Nancy, you changed so much of my life. And I asked him a little bit more about it, and he said, you know what, I didn't think it was going to work. And I told everybody it wasn't going to work, and then it did. And I was a little shocked, because I don't always hear that one, because mostly people want the work. But he was the first one to say, I did not want this to work, and did. And that just goes to show, like, you could really work on anybody. And this is a kinesiology. This is not a therapy. It's a technique. So my youngest client currently is 3 months old. And I changed the allergies for that kid so he doesn't scratch himself. He's literally scratching. And now he doesn't scratch. He had an allergy. My oldest client is 90 years old. She just wants to keep driving. And she does. It's really amazing. So it can be fantastic. But you can find a ton of anecdotal information. Susan McCrossan has a book called Breaking the Learning Barrier, which is mostly anecdotal. You can find all sorts of anecdotal information online about Crossnology. There is a little bit of data on the Crossnology website. And then you have my informal data, which is on the Whole Body website.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Other questions?
Crossnology?
Yes.
Okay.
Crossnology is the name of the work. Yes, it is crossnology.com. Yeah.
It's from the founder, Susan McCrossan. So there's
That's the name.
the name.
Yeah, it's up there. So there are some good websites here. Whole Minded Health is Liz's website. Mine is nancylodi.com. Wholebodysolutions.org. I wrote all the information there. And crossnology.com. So there's lots of info there. We also have an awesome web page, like our Facebook page is really jamming, has lots of cool information on it. This talk will be up on that page. Also, the presentation I gave today has a voiceover that's also on that page, so you can just watch that and you don't have to watch this whole thing. So there's that. Some office hours around here. You're here Sundays and Mondays.
Sundays and Mondays.
You have all office hours by appointment, usually outside of this office, but she can also be seen here, I assume. Is that correct? Yeah, she can also be seen here. I'm in this office Monday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So that's it.
And that's when you'll actually see it work. You can watch as many videos as you like. Welcome to it.
Also, if you have any other questions, obviously feel free to email me, call me, any of those things, contact me in any way. You can call me here. My email's really easy, nancy@nancylodi.com. Then we just talk about it, how I can help. And if I can't help, I just refer you to someone else. It's pretty rare, but that happens as well. Okay.
And the office staff does all the scheduling for us.
Yeah, we don't schedule our own
We're so
clients.
spoiled like little prima donnas. Okay, I'll be there.
Cool. Thank you, everybody on Facebook. So we're going to say goodbye to them. You might have to tap it a few times.